They kicked in my front door at 2 in the morning. Not because of a fire, not because of an emergency, but because of a $5 fine. What they didn't expect was my son, a Special Forces vet, standing in the hallway waiting for them. Act 1. The conflict begins. It started with a piece of paper. Ugly bubblegum pink stuck under the wiper of my truck on a rainy morning. At first I thought it was some cheap pizza flyer, but no, it was a fine from the HOA. $5. The crime: my garbage cans were visible from the street. I stared at those same cans that had sat in the exact spot for 12 years. Nothing new, nothing dangerous, just visible. And of course the signature at the bottom belonged to her. Karen Lawson, our HOA president, our self-appointed suburban dictator. This woman lived for rules. She fined a veteran for flying his flag 1 inch too low. She told a new mom she should rent instead of own because her stroller was left outside for 10 minutes. She was the kind of person who treated bylaws like holy scripture and her neighbors like sinners. I went back inside, dripping water on my wife Jill's clean kitchen floor. She didn't even need to look at the slip to know. Karen again, she said, eyes still on her laptop. Jill always saw patterns where I just saw annoyances. And sure enough, she started pulling up the neighborhood chat group. Lawn edging, a basketball hoop, a political sign from 2 years ago. All fined, all $5, all within the past 48 hours. My daughter Emma came downstairs, grabbed a yogurt, rolled her eyes at the pink paper. Another one, she muttered. Another one. Turns out Mrs. Henderson had been hit too. Then the Sanders. Then Mike across the street. That's when Jill's eyes narrowed the way they do when she's solving a puzzle. This isn't random, she said. It's a system. Me, I just wanted to pay the stupid $5 and forget it. But Jill saw a machine grinding away. And my son Luke? Well, Luke saw something worse. He'd been back from deployment only a few months. Quiet guy, calm eyes. He picked up the fine, ran his thumb across the soggy paper and said one word, HOA. But the way he said it, it wasn't a question. It was a threat assessment. I thought he was overreacting. But then the fines kept coming. Emma's bike on the lawn, moss on the north side of our roof. Every slip was pocket change, but it wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, about keeping us nervous, off balance. One night, Luke set up a trail cam. He wanted proof. Honestly, I laughed at the idea of military surveillance over garbage cans. But 2 days later, he called us over to Jill's laptop. Grainy black and white footage. A car pulling up at 2:17 a.m. A young guy sneaking out, stuffing a pink slip into our mailbox. And in that 1 second he looked up, the camera caught his face. Dale, local kid, nephew of Frank Miller, the HOA treasurer. Jill leaned in close, her voice tight. He put it in the mailbox. That's a federal crime. That's when I realized this wasn't just about fines. This was the opening move in something bigger. Act 2. Escalation and turning point. We followed the thread. Luke and I drove to Frank Miller's house one afternoon, parked down the street, watched. Frank left his garage door open while mowing his lawn, and for 15 minutes we had a clear view inside. What we saw chilled me. A stack of dark blue polo shirts, embroidered with HOA security. Fake laminated ID badges hanging on hooks. And worst of all, a postal arrow key. A master key that opens every locked mailbox cluster in the neighborhood. That key alone made everything snap into focus. They weren't just slipping papers under doors. They were opening locked mailboxes, planting notices like official mail. Illegal. Federal felony. And then Luke spotted it, a stack of manila folders, names scribbled across the tabs. Henderson, Sanders, and right there, Cole. My name. I'll never forget the cold weight in my stomach in that moment. Jill confirmed our nightmare the next morning. She came back from the county clerk's office, pale, shaking, clutching papers. They filed a lien, she whispered, against our home. $7,500. All built from phony fines inflated with late fees and legal costs. And at the bottom, my forged signature. I stared at it, my own name stolen from me. And that's when I broke. I'll be honest, I thought about giving up. Thought about just paying whatever it took to make them go away. I wondered if maybe I was the fool here fighting a battle I couldn't win. Maybe the HOA was too powerful. Maybe it was me against an entire machine. But Jill wouldn't let me quit. And Luke, he just kept cleaning his rifle at the kitchen table, calm, methodical. "They're not stopping," he said. "This ends when we end it." Still I dragged my feet until the night of the storm. Wind howled, rain pounded, and then a crack of glass at the front door. Two figures in hooded rain gear, crowbar in hand. One raised a pistol. This wasn't about fines anymore. It was a home invasion. Jill called 911, voice steady. Luke pulled his rifle from the closet, slid into the hallway like a shadow. And when those men finally pried our door open, drenched in rain, faces hidden, Luke stepped forward. Calm, commanding, "Get out of my house." He lit them up with his tactical flashlight. One dropped the crowbar instantly. The other, the gunman, froze, panic in his eyes. Sirens were closing in. "Drop it," Luke ordered. And finally the gun clattered onto the welcome mat. They fled into the storm. We should have felt relief. But then our neighbor screamed, "He's got a gun!" And when the deputies arrived seconds later, guns drawn, who do you think they arrested? Not the intruders, not Karen's hired muscle. They cuffed Luke, my son. Watching him kneel on the porch in the pouring rain, wrists bound, was the lowest moment of my life. But Jill, she never wavered. She gathered every file, every photo, every piece of evidence into her binder. When the detective came skeptical at first, she laid it all out. The video, the plates, the fake uniforms, the postal key, and finally that lien with my forged name. The detective's eyes changed. Then he made a call. And the next day, in a small gray conference room, a federal postal inspector sat across from us, underlining one phrase 3 times, arrow key. "This," he said, "is a federal conspiracy, and it ends now." Act 3. The Showdown in Justice. The plan was simple. Take down Karen publicly at the annual HOA meeting in front of everyone she had terrorized. The clubhouse was packed. Neighbors sat shoulder to shoulder, some with restless eyes, some already holding phones ready to record. Karen stood at the podium, smug as ever, rambling about landscaping budgets and order in our community. Then Jill rose. "Point of order, Madam President," she said, voice ringing. Karen snapped. "You are out of order, Mrs. Cole." But Jill wasn't out of order. She was the order. Mike killed the lights in the back, and our projector flared to life. 10 feet tall on the wall behind Karen, the grainy trail cam shot of Dale caught in the act of stuffing our mailbox at 2:17 a.m. Gasps, murmurs, phones lifted. Jill's voice carried steady, deliberate, "This is proof of mailbox tampering, a federal crime." Then slide after slide, the license plate, the photos of fake HOA security shirts, and finally the forged lien with my signature scrawled across it. The room erupted. Neighbors shouting, some near tears, some furious. Mike stood up, voice shaking. "She filed one on my house. $10,000. Another yelled, "Mine's 15. Karen tried to scream over the chaos. "You all signed the covenants. If you can't afford order, you can't afford this neighborhood." But the crowd wasn't buying it. And then the back doors opened. Detective Reynolds and Inspector Martin strode in, flanked by deputies, warrants in hand. Karen Lawson, the detective, announced, "You are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and multiple federal offenses." The room went silent, then exploded in cheers as deputies cuffed her right there at the podium. Her smug smile collapsed into shock, eyes wide, as the weight of her crimes finally crushed her. Frank Miller and 2 other board members were arrested on the spot. And just like that, the so-called queen of our neighborhood was dragged out, humiliated, exposed, finished. Closing line. Bullies only win when you stay quiet the moment you fight back their empire of fines and fear comes crashing down.